Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're trying to be the Grand Librarian, and we'll do so by collecting rare books. We'll be doing so by sending our assistants out into the village to go grab those books, bringing them back and creating our own library. We're going to be trying to build a library that has a very stable shelf. It's got to be in alphabetical order. We're trying to focus on some prominent works as well as our own secret type of books while trying to avoid banned books and also having varieties of different books. Today we're going to be taking a look at Ex Libris from Renegade Game Studios. It's for 1 to 4 players and it takes 60 minutes or less. Today we're going to be doing a rule school, so I'm going to teach you how to set up and play the game so that you don't have to read the rulebook and get to the fun quicker. We're going to start with a quick 1-minute overview and then we'll dive right in. Here we go. Ex Libris is a worker placement game for 1 to 4 players where you're going to be creating your own library of different books, and all the books have unique names depending on the theme of those style books. You'll be putting them in letter order from left to right and top to bottom. You'll be going to different locations each round which give you different actions. Each round new tiles for actions come out, but some of them stay for the rest of the game, so the amount of actions you have choices for continue to grow throughout the game. Each game, one type of book is going to be the prominent works that you're fighting for to have the most of for points, and some of them are banned, which will give you minus points. You'll also be trying to create a large block of books together as shelf stability points. Each player will get one of 12 different libraries with their own unique token and special abilities, and they'll get a secret type of book they're trying to collect for more points at the end of the game. And you'll also score points for having a great variety of different types of books. So there's a variety of different strategies for scoring and plenty of choices throughout the game, and it plays in 60 minutes or less. To set up, first find the town board and place it in the center of the table. Once unfolded, the board looks like this. Next, you'll find the Diviner's Hut location tile. The backs of the location tiles look like this. You'll find the one that says Diviner's Hut. It has the number 1 in the upper left-hand corner. You'll place it face up just below the town board. You'll then take the rest of the location tiles, you'll shuffle them like this, face down, you'll put them to the side of the board. Give this first player marker to whoever has most recently acquired a book. If you'd like to play the beginner game, each player will get a library tile that looks like this. These are double-sided, and the back sides of all the library tiles look like this. You give each player one of those, and each player will take 3 standard assistants of any same color they like. If you'd like to play the standard game, take all of the library tiles with the beginner side up as shown here, shuffle them together. You'll then take 2 of those library tiles per player and randomly flip them over face up in the middle of the board. You'll also find the special assistant components that come with each one of these boards that's shown on the tile. Now, starting with the last player in player order and going counterclockwise so that the first player has last choice, each player is going to take 1 tile with the special assistant and then discard out of the game one of the tiles with its special assistant. So the last player in player order gets first choice. They might take this, the Volcanic Biblioteca, and then discard this one out of the game. And then in this case, the first player goes last. Let's say they take the Igloo of Information and they discard the Garden of Education out of the game. You'd then take 2 standard assistants of the color of your choice. The third assistant of that color that was used in the beginner game is not used. This can be placed back in the box. Find the 6 category cards, which have a backside that look like this. You'll shuffle them up and you'll put one of them face up, both just to the right of the prominent works and to the right of the banned books on the town board. And so it might look like this when you're done, and therefore each game is going to play differently. With the other category cards, you'll deal 1 to each player face down. That player will secretly look at it. This will give them a focus throughout the game. In this case, I'm focusing on spells and potions. This shows focus. I will then secretly look at this and make sure that it is underneath here to keep it secret. Any leftover category cards can be discarded back to the box without looking at them. In this case, we're playing a 2-player game, so there'll be 2 left over. You'll shuffle all the book cards together. You'll then deal 6 of those book cards to each player face down. Each player can look at these. That is their hand for the start of the game. The rest of the book cards can be placed in roughly 2 equal stacks next to the side of the town board. The official library inspection form with its dry erase marker is how you score the game at the end, so you don't need it right now, but you'll bring it out at the end of the game. The object of the game is to shelve books into your own library with many different things that you're trying to do, like specializing in the type of book that is your secret type that was given at the beginning of the game. And trying to have a large stable section in their library, having the most of the prominent works type for that game for endgame victory points, trying to avoid the banned book types for that game, and to have a variety of all different types of books. The game's played over multiple rounds, and each round has 4 phases where you'll be preparing the round, you'll be placing different assistants on your own library board, as well as location tiles, many of which resolve right away, others resolve in the resolution phase, and then cleaning up for future rounds. The first phase is the preparation phase. You'll take location tiles off the top of the stack and place them face up below the board. You'll make sure that there's as many tiles face up as there are players. In this case, we're playing a 2-player game, so this part is done. Keep in mind that during the first round, the diviner's hut always starts here, so you'll actually draw 1 less tile than normal only in the first round. Next, see if any of the tiles have a special preparation, like deal 3. We'll put 3 cards from the top of the book stack, and we'll place them here. They always go face up unless specified otherwise. You want to make sure they're displayed so that you can read the letters, the numbers, and see the icons of all of the cards there. During the placement phase, starting with the player with the first player marker and going clockwise, each player will place one of their unused assistants, either regular or special, onto any unoccupied spot, either on their own library tile or on an unoccupied spot on a location tile. When you place an assistant on your own board, you can either draw 1 card or shelve a card. When you draw a card, you take the top card from either of these 2 book decks and you add that card to your hand. There's many different actions during the game that will allow you to shelve a card, like the one we just spoke about. Regardless of how it's done, anytime you shelve a card, you're going to place a book in your own library in front of you, sort of building your own library tableau. If it's your first card, you just place it here. Any card after that has to be orthogonally adjacent to any of the cards that are already in your library. So the next book that I shelved could not be placed diagonal like this because there's no card orthogonally adjacent to it, but I could place it like this. Also, when shelving books, you can never make it so that it is 4 rows tall. You can never go taller than 3 rows, so I could not place this card way up here off the screen at the top. I could place it next to this card, for example. You can have as many columns as you want, but never more horizontal rows than 3. It's important to note that as you're building your own library by shelving books, you're trying to keep your books in alphabetical order going left to right and top to bottom. In this case, we have the same lettered book. That's when we use the numbers. This says 4 out of 9 for C. This says 7 out of 9 for C. Because 4 is less than 7, this is still considered in order. However, if these were rearranged the other way, they would be out of order. You wouldn't worry about it now, but at the end of the game, all cards that are out of order will get flipped over and you won't be able to score them for many of the purposes. In the standard game, since everyone has a special assistant that goes with their own library tile, they can use that assistant for a special ability. In this case, the snowman says other assistants may not visit the same location as the snowman, essentially freezing everybody else out. If you need further clarifications on special assistants abilities, start with page 16 in the rulebook. Now, instead of placing on your own library tile, as we've shown before, you can place one of your assistants out on one of these location tiles, keeping in mind you're only placing 1 assistant per turn. Let's say I place it on the diviner's hut. This lightning bolt means it is an instant effect. When you place there, you immediately do the effect that's on that tile. This one says, draw 1 card for every assistant you've played, take the first player token. So if I go here, let's say this was my second assistant because I had already placed 1 on my own library tile, I would have drawn 2 cards, and those cards are the book cards, and I would have gotten the first player token as well. Now let's say the next player wants to play on the auction house. Now you'll notice this is red and has a clock. That means it's a delayed effect. It says when placing, choose a bid space and return any outbid assistants to their player. And then during the resolution, the highest bidder must discard a number of cards that's on the spot that they're on, and then they can take the 3 cards here and shelve them if they like. So let's say the player goes here, they're bidding 1. This will resolve at the resolution phase. Now some tiles have a restriction as to how many players need to be playing in order to go to one of the spots. This right spot here on the mystery shack says 3+, which means you can only go to this specific spot of this location if there are 3 or more players. Once all assistants from all players have been placed, we go to the resolution phase. Here we start with the lowest numbered location tile and keep going in ascending order until we see one of these red tiles. This is one that will be activated during the resolution phase, and they'll always be red tiles. So the lowest number will go first, and that are the red tiles, and you will just do what it says. In this case it says the highest bidder must discard the number of cards, in this case 1 card, and they'll be able to get all of these cards here, and then they can shelve those 3 if they like. You would continue doing this in the order of all of the location tiles that have delayed effects. After all those have been resolved, we go to the cleanup phase, where we look for the lowest numbered tile out beneath the board. In the first round, it's always going to be in the Diviner's Heart. In subsequent rounds, you just look for the tile that has the lowest number. You're going to take that tile and you're going to move it onto the town board. You'll place that tile on the lower half of the town board where it says permanent locations. This location can be gone to for the rest of the game, just like any of the location tiles that are below the board face up. Then you take all other tiles. By the way, everyone gets their assistance back during this spot, and you'd put this in a face-up discard pile for the location tiles. Then each player would remove the assistants from their own library tiles and place them off, getting ready to play for next round. You'd then refer to this table, which is also on page 8 of the rulebook, and you'd see, are there enough books in somebody's library to trigger the final round? In this case, we're playing with 2 players. Someone would need to have 16 cards in their library. That's not the case right now for either of us, so then we would continue to the first phase again, which is the preparation phase. And just to remind you, in subsequent rounds, there'll be no tiles out here because they have all either moved to the permanent locations or have been discarded, so you're going to add 1 tile per player, in this case 2 tiles. Here we'd take 2 location tiles from the stack, place them face up, and we would deal 4 to this one face down, so some of them have that preparation. Of course, now noting that also this is number 13 and this is number 11, so we know that at the end of this round, this is going to be the tile that's going to go to that permanent location. Also, it can happen that the game is not yet over when there's as many location tiles on the permanent locations part of the board, and there's still more rounds to go. If that happens, you can continue to place the lowest tile number at the end of the round below this board or off to the side, knowing that it's still a permanent location. You're not bound by how big this board is. At the end of the cleanup phase, if someone has, in this case, 2 players, 16 or more cards in their library, we start the final round. You play the final round as normal, and then afterwards we get ready to do final scoring. The one with the best penmanship will start to keep track of scores on the official library inspection form. By the way, it's double-sided. This is the solo side. This is the normal side that has all the ledger looking like this. So you'll put the people's names and you'll go down and start to score. First of all, we look for alphabetical order check. Each player checks the bookshelf to the player to their right. Using the same rules I spoke about before when shelving a book, everything has to be alphabetical order, left to right and top to bottom. Now there's 2 cards here that are not in order. The L, which will get flipped over, and the F is not in order because there's a G here and a G here, so this F is in the middle of it, and this is flipped over. These are still good because this is G2, and this is G3 out of 5. By the way, keep in mind that everyone's library tile also has the letters and how many cards there are for each of those letters. Keep that in mind as you're playing the game. So once we've done that, everyone would get a check mark that things are now in order. We then go through each of the book types, and you would recite how many of those book types you have as we go through each of these. So for example, for the corrupted codices, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total corrupted codices. So we would continue to keep track of these for all of the players. So after finishing section A, it might look something like this. Then we'll move on to section B, and we'll start with survey shelf stability bonuses. So each player will count the largest rectangular group of cards in their bookshelf. That includes a card on the bottom shelf. So it has to include a bottom shelf card. And then we look at the largest contiguous rectangle. So here I have one big rectangle right here. So it's 1, 2, 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 15 cards there. You get 1 point for each. So I have 15. Notice that the cards that were flipped over to the other side won't score me for many of the majority bonuses and things like that, but they do count for shelf points. That's one time where you put a card that you know will get flipped in order to get more points at the end. Next, we'd look at prominent works. Each player would count the number of reference text books in their library. The one who's in first place gets 15 points, second place 9 points, and third place 4 points. If two or more players are tied for the different award, like let's say we had 2 players tied for first place, you'd take first and the second place and you would add them up, divide them out as evenly as possible, and round up. If 3 players were tied for first place, you would take all 3 of these, add them up, divide them up as evenly as possible, and round up. We would then subtract 1 point for each of the banned books. In this game, it was monster manuals. And it's real easy to see because you take monster manuals and you just put minus for that number there. Then each player, for a variety, takes 3 points for each book in their bookshelf of the category which they have the least, but not counting the banned books. And so the least of books that I had, not counting the banned books, are the Corrupted Codices at 6, so I'll multiply that by 3 to get 18. And Sarah, the smallest amount of books, not counting the banned books, is also Corrupted Codices, which is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. People would then reveal their secret focus. Mine was spells and potions, and you basically get 2 times each of these, so essentially 2 points for each one. So my secret book type was spells and potions, so I double this for 20, and Sarah's was Corrupted Codices, she doubles it for 10. Then for section C, we simply total all of the B scores in this section for all players. And so here we see the totals. I beat Sarah 53 to 49, and just below that you can see the tiebreakers, which is, first one is most books in the library, second is fewest cards in hand, and third is the next player to finish reading a book. And if when scoring you want to make it a little easier on yourself, you can put a squiggly circle around the banned books and just a normal circle around the prominent works to make things easier for scoring. If you have more questions about how the location tiles work, you can look at the location glossary starting on page 11 of the instruction manual. If you'd like to learn more about the solo mode, you can start in the rulebook starting on page 19. Well, I hope this helped you dive right into Ex Libris faster than you normally would without having to read the rulebook. Now, if you have further questions, go ahead and place them. I've put a link below in the description of this video. That's the best location to do so, because I will get a notification, but so will the publisher, and will do the best to answer them.